What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Perspective Chasers podcast, and I'm your host, John. On this episode, I want to talk about patience. But first of all, I want to say thank you to anybody that's subscribed so far, anybody that's dropped any likes or comments. I really do appreciate it. And if I can reach people just doing this with the small setup that I have, then trust me, there's hope for all of us. Because it really doesn't take much, so don't hold yourself back from taking that move and just putting your stuff out there, no matter what it is. It don't have to be a podcast, it could be music, it could be art, it could be writing, anything. Like, take that move. There are people out there that are willing to support you. Like, this is proof of that, and so are many other podcasts and many other projects that people have put out in the world. So have a little faith and put it out there. You'll be surprised. Now to the main topic of the episode, patience. This is something I struggle with constantly. As always, I'm no expert, I'm just a dude living life, and I'm always struggling with patience. Like, I know the benefits of being patient. I've been patient before and I've worked at things for what seemed like long term to me at the time, but in retrospect, it wasn't. Again, it comes down to perspective. If you're 20 and you've devoted 5 years to something, that's a quarter of your life. That seems like a long time. If you live to 80 and you devoted 5 years of your life to something, it doesn't seem like so much. So, obviously, over the years, the more life goes on, and I look back over when it's like, when I thought I was being patient and playing the long game, and it's just like, man, you waited months or a year max. Like, no matter what it was, like, you never really played it out long term. And I suppose I've touched on this in other episodes where I was talking about how people pursue things for like a decade and they spend their life studying one specific thing. Like, I'm not saying to be patient to that extent, but at least find some sort of in-between. Like, my idea of long term, especially coming through my 20s, was a year, 6 months max. And like, I'm a curious person, so anytime I get into something, I'll look into it for a little bit. Take like stocks and that, for example. If you think a year, 6 months is long term on stocks, you definitely need to do your research. And there's a lot of life like that. Like, I'm like 6 months into this podcast now, or something like that. And fairly early on, I started doing 2 episodes a week. And I've put out a fair amount of shorts, and like, again, I'm still a one-man band, so it takes time for it to take off. But now looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, like 6 months is a drop in an ocean. Like, my daughter's 3 now, like, that's gone in the blink of an eye. So devoting 10 years to something ain't necessarily the longest of times. Like, to actually be patient and see how things go over the long term. Like, don't get me wrong, you have to find something worth investing that much of your life into. I mean, I never know how long I'm going to be here for. Both my parents passed away fairly young in comparison to life expectancy these days. So I don't know what I've got in me. I don't want to squirrel that away and waste my life doing something I don't enjoy. That's part of the reason why I started this podcast. Like, I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy talking about life and reflecting on my life and other people's lives. Like I've said 1,000 times over now, there's much to be learned from every person you meet. It's just if you're wise enough to see it. So, having the patience in letting your projects where you do have the passion for them play out, and truly through the long term, to the point where you don't look at the clock when you do it. Like, for me, it's more complicated because my time ain't just mine, obviously. With little one and that, like, I've got X amount of time that I need to give to my daughter, and that just comes with life, do you know what I mean? But finding the time to do things where you're not in a rush for them to end. Like when I'm sitting here podcasting, if that's the right term, I don't necessarily watch the clock. Like I try to keep the episodes shorter these days, yes, but not because I don't want to talk. Sometimes because I am genuinely rushed for time. Like I say, my life is pretty hectic. I juggle. But for the most part, I'm realising more so than anything lately that I have all the ingredients for happiness. But I still don't feel like I'm there yet. And I don't know if it's me being in my own way, again, playing the patience game of delaying that gratification called be happy when you get X, Y, and Z. But then I'll forever move that goalpost. So then if I treat patience like that, then it's going to become my enemy. Because I'll never get there. So there's times where you've got to give yourself a win. Now, again, it comes down to you to determine what that win is, how big that win is in comparison to where you are. But I think that's probably the key to patience, is being able to take the little wins when you need them, but hold your breath for the big wins. Because things ain't gonna take off overnight. Like, the world doesn't change overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say. So give yourself some time. No matter what you're doing, like if you're practicing an instrument, if you're studying something, if you're trying to get in shape, if you're starting a business, just be patient with yourself. Give yourself a bit of time, and trust me, it's not going to be just as easy as flicking a light switch. Yeah, cool, or I'll give myself a bit more patience, shall I? Because I'm that guy that has a go at myself as I'm going to sleep. You should have done this, you should have done that. Like, well, if you're laying here not asleep, you could be getting things done. It's just wasted time. Like, my mind goes a million miles an hour. So trust me, I understand that it's not as easy as just being patient with yourself. But when you fight those demons and you are patient with yourself, and you let yourself take the wins when you can, and then you jump back on the grindstone, you remind yourself why you're doing it, and you're reinvigorated. You've got a new lease on life then, because you've had a bit of the taste of the win, and now it's good to go again. And other people might be different, but that's my method at the minute. Like, again, every person is going to be different. Some people seem to be set on living a life of misery, or not even misery, but just a hard life. I seem to want to enjoy the beauty of life and be more relaxed and kind of see what the world has to offer, opposed to, and again, like I've spoken about before, other times in my life I wanted to push the limits of my body and see what we could do. But at the same time, there is so much around us to appreciate. Like, so much in nature to appreciate. Do we really need to be so aggressive and so harsh on ourselves? Like, could we not just slow down and smell the roses? There's a lot of hustle and bustle in life in the minute, and there always will be. So unless you give yourself the time to appreciate the moment and appreciate the wins, what's it all for? Like, I don't think anybody would get to the end of their life and wish they had less happiness in their life, or wish they enjoyed less moments. So why not actively try to enjoy more moments while you're here? Like, none of us know how long we've got, so don't be too patient. Take a win every once in a while. And that's advice that I need to take myself, especially at this time of year. But I'll get into that on another episode. I think I want to wrap this one up. The seed for this episode is going to be give yourself some time. Like, it don't change overnight. Like, it might seem like everybody else gets their wins overnight, but whether that be true or not, I'm telling you, the way that most of us do it is the long haul. And don't get me wrong, you'll streamline the process over time. But if you start willing to put in your 1,000 hours, if you make it sooner, great. But once you get to that 1,000 hours, you'll have a much different perspective. So be patient with yourself and give yourself the time to make the change. All the best, and I'll catch you on the next one.